a morte, domani, grandeo, a morte dar vedrò.
So I guess that leads me to the question that I know some of my viewers have been asking is with regards to training the mezzo-soprano voice, and what are some of the unique training challenges that we mezzos face as compared to other voice types? I mean, every voice type has, I feel, its own little unique hiccup, we'll say, when it comes to training. Speaking in generalizations again here too, because obviously voices differ, but what are some of the common challenges, maybe challenges that you faced in your early training especially, or challenges that you find with your mezzo-soprano students that you're working with?
I find the two challenges is the chest voice, which of the mezzo-soprano, as I said, which is quite, if you are a mezzo, substantial. It has a nice ringing quality. And when you do take the chest voice up higher, the marriage to your middle, that's because of it being so much stronger than a soprano's would be. Their marriage, or with the two registers coming closer to each other and having to overlap and dovetail, so it sounds like one instrument, it's easier for them because the weight of their chest voice is not so heavy, so the distance they have to go in flexibility, in matching the resonance and sound of their middle voices to their chest voices, I feel is closer to that of the mezzo-soprano and their middle voice. Because the chest voice can be so strong and powerful, that to really get this balance straight so that you don't do that typical mezzo thing, which I hate. Let me see if I can think of an example. Carmen would be an example, because that happens. There's l'amour est you know, you get this, and then you go up again, but that's not exactly, that actually is even better, I think, is, you can edit this, even better, I think, is the Samson and Delilah aria, where you hear the mezzo-soprano sort of go, they sort of like sound like, you know, it's like giving labor to some.
I always call that the foghorn sound. Ooh, yeah. It sounds like a foghorn.
Yes, and I deplore this. You know, I mean, go and listen to a couple of YouTube ones out there. You will hear them. You know, they get, and that's also something. You know, one of those generalizations that sometimes mezzo-sopranos, they sort of like whack it down into their chest voice like that, and they don't keep that middle and head voice connection going down, and that is a very problematic area in training the mezzo-soprano voice, to make sure that you take enough head voice down so that you sing it elegantly and beautifully, and not just whack it down into your chest voice like that. That's one big element. And then the other one is the second passaggio, where mezzo-sopranos tend to take way too much weight up from their middle too high, and then they wonder why they can't sing high notes. Is they don't realize, and this is going to depend on each individual voice, it's going to depend on what you sing, it depends on the vowel you're going to sing, but as of, it can start from C5, C sharp, D, E flat, E. That whole sort of third with all its semitones in between. You're gonna if you're gonna take up your I was teaching a mezzo-soprano today, for example. We were doing both Charlotte arias, and this goes up to a F. And what was happening is she was taking up such a lot of weight from her middle voice that F felt just, she was like, oh, it was like she was pushing her, you know, she was like Atlas, and had the whole weight of the whole world on her shoulders. And then we we took it apart and really looked at it, the approach, and realized that she was in the zona di passaggio and that she had to really lighten up. Lighten up now doesn't mean losing the depth in your sound or singing with a high larynx. It's really got to do with, the Germans have a wonderful word, schlanke, slender vowels, which means the head voice part, that little girl voice. From there, that voice, you have to realize that that function needs to be the dominant function in your voice. And you need to strengthen that function. And not the, that part of your voice that you're going to want to do. It's a, you have to use the brighter part, which is going to sound bright to you. But it is the head voice. And you have to start transitioning earlier into your head voice in the zona di passaggio, or else you'll never get up to the high notes, because it's like you're taking up all this weight, and then all of a sudden, if you're going to then try and slim up for the top notes, it's just going to be a catastrophe.
I was telling that to a student last week as well, that because we were working on head voice, and I was telling her, because she was running into a very similar situation where it was just, she was kind of delaying that until about EF5. And I explained to her, I said that even me with a lyric, on the lighter end of lyric instrument, I find myself transitioning, depending on the vowel, as early as C sharp usually.
Yes.
Because if I wait until that upper passaggio for me, which is about E5, if I wait until that point, it's a little bit too late, because things have already lost their balance. And so if I start allowing the vowel to turn over, if I start allowing those slight chromatic shifts, those very graduated adjustments to take place a few notes before that, by the time I get to my E, everything is in perfect balance.
Exactly. And
but I can't delay. Yes.
You can't. And that's something that mezzo-sopranos really, it's a trap they fall into, because they get so used to this lush and warm sound they have in their middle that they think, oh gosh, I've got to sound like a mezzo. And if I start sounding bright in my ears here, and if I sound bright up at the top, then I'm not going to sound like a mezzo. Well, let me just say to you, mezzo-soprano, there's only one way of singing your top notes. There is only one way. And biology shows us, and science tells us this as well, that, if you're going to take up the weight, you can take up vocal mass, you're going to get into trouble. It's just not the way to go. And ask me from years and years of experience. Now, it doesn't mean to say that if you want to color something with a specific intent, say specifically want a very dark sound because you're singing about death, or something, you're singing La Mort de Cléopâtre by Berlioz or something, and you're wanting to have a very dark sound, then you can take up more weight for that specific note. In, say you're singing an F, you can take up more weight to sing that one note with a color, but you have to be aware why you're doing it. But if you're on your way through to going up higher, then it's always best, as I explain it in two ways. I can give two images that I found helpful to me. Is if you're on one plane here, we're in a hotel, we're on one floor, and there's another floor. To get from this floor to that floor, we have a staircase. Now the staircase is narrower. Here it's nice and big, we can walk around, and then we have to climb the stairs, one step per step, till we get to that higher plane where we can move again. And this is the zona di passaggio. It's more slender. And it's so wonderful, the Italians like saying, like a passageway. Passages tend to be things that are not broad and open. That's why it's called a passage in the truest sense of the word. It's a passage. It's narrower, and it's a place of passage. It's something we move through. But the stairs sort of help me as well, because it just shows you that every note is you're going to need that minuscule adjustment that you need to climb to get to those stairs. Then another way of thinking of that too is like you're climbing a mountain and you've got a rucksack on your back. The higher you go, the heavier that rucksack is going to be. and it's going to want to pull you back, and it's going to want to pull you down. So start getting rid of some of the weight. Start getting rid of some of the things you're not going to, I don't need these extra shoes. Chuck them out. Chuck out the book that you brought with. Get it lighter. You're going to be able to go up easier. So in other words, don't take up that vocal mass, that weight, the weight with you. And another thing I can just encourage mezzo-sopranos is that if you sing slender through your passaggio, believe me, you're going to have much more squillo, you're going to have much more peng or twang in your sound than if you're going to open it up and think, oh, in your own ears, whoa, I sound magnificent, big, round, and fat. That's a very big trap that you can fall into, because taking up vocal weight, and the vocal weight, as we know, is not going to be intuitive to really help you get that fine edge and that cutting edge which you're going to need to be able to sing on a big operatic stage. So actually, the brighter and more slender you sound on the inside for yourself, usually on the outside, it's going to bring the correct result, is my experience.
And that brings me to resonance tuning, right? Because we know that as singers get higher in the scale, especially females, the higher up we go, the further apart those harmonics are. And so when it comes to tuning our resonance, to tuning our formants, our vowels, we have fewer options. And so when you speak of this is the first thing that came to mind when we speak of kind of getting that narrowing and that ping and the brightness. It really just reminds me, of how we have to tune once we get above that passaggio area to be able to get that tuning and that carrying power in the voice. I don't know if you want to speak specifically about vowels, if you have a strategy that you use for tuning that resonance. I know some singers are very aware of their tuning strategies and they are very deliberate about their vowels. And I don't know if you have a strategy that you like to use that helps you find that ping in that upper range and still a sound that really carries.
Oh, it depends on the role you're singing. It's not like a cookie cutter, that I can use and say, oh, I'm going to, this is a formula and I'm going to apply this formula. It's going to work all the way through. It depends on the role. It depends on the approach to it. It depends on what follows. So it's far more complicated than just be able to say, oh yes, this is my strategy and this is what I do. My strategy is that I'm very aware that when I sing through my passaggio, I have to sing slender. And there's you can think of it as like sharpening a pencil. You've got the pencil sharpener here, and you're turning, and it's becoming more slender here, but you don't lose the rest of the pencil, the warmth. In other words, you don't lose what I would say the depth of your sound. You keep your low, correct singing larynx position, which you find when you breathe in correctly, the larynx will sink to its singing place, as I call it. Naturally, we're not speaking about a forced, held, low larynx position. Please, no misconceptions about that. Your larynx will go into the absolute correct singing if you breathe correctly. The constrictor muscles will all relax, and because they've relaxed, we get the sensation of that everything is opened up. And that's all we need. That's the pencil part, that stays, and that will give you the warmth and the lower frequencies that you need in your sound when you're going through the passaggio. But the passaggio is the pencil point that you're sharpening. That's the pencil point, and that's very, 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 very important. For me, that's my strategy, is to think of each vowel, if I know I'm singing in my passaggio, to make sure that I'm not weighting it, unless I'm using it for one specific note because I'm giving it a certain color.
And I think that's probably why you've had the career that you've had, because you don't approach things from a cookie cutter perspective, right? And I think that gives you then the versatility and the flexibility, the willingness, technically speaking, to be flexible enough to adjust for the given role. That to me is what an artist does. You're not just a technician, but you're an artist, where you're able to adapt your technique to the role. And that's, definitely what we should all aspire to.
Thank you. Yes, and of course, if you sing, you know, if you're singing with the correct emotionality of that's required for a note, sometimes you don't even have to think that technically. Sometimes the correct emotion will bring it on its own. Will, you know, help you find that correct resonance that you're needing for that specific note. But sometimes you're really wanting a specific color. Go and sit down. The voice is the most amazing instrument. You can do all sorts of noises and funny things with it. Go and experiment. Go and find out what it can do, but always in a healthy way. Always in a healthy way. Always with good posture, good support. Make sure you're using your torso muscles to support that airflow. Sing it and experiment in a good and healthy way till you find whichever way you're wanting to color it, you know, and have great fun and try it out. And the wonderful thing is, this is where experience comes in, that if you have the luxury of being able to sing, I think like Brangena in Tristan and Isolde, which I'm singing now, I think I've sung way over 100 performances of the role. So I have oodles of different ways of trying out. Okay, that performance, I tried that out because I had this conductor, which took this tempo, and because it was a slower tempo, I had to be careful really not to weight up the voice because it would be Mount Everest. I would never have gotten up there. This guy is really going very fast, so I'm going to have to do this and this and that. So experience and circumstances teach you too, and you have to stay flexible. This is why it's so important to have the thing called what we call technique, because it's your tools that you need to be able to do your vocation, to be able to do your passion, to sing. And this is why it is so, so important to find a teacher that gives you the tools, that doesn't just say, and you have to go, or go, ooh, and you go, ooh, and doesn't explain why, where, and how for. You know, ask your teachers if they aren't, you know, explaining something. So say, how come I can't get it to sound like that? What am I doing wrong? So that if you stand in your room practicing by yourself and it's not working, you're not just going to by hit and miss like Russian roulette, try it out 5 times, and the 6th time it might work, but you don't know why the other 5 didn't. So that you are singing with intelligence and knowledge. This is what's going to take you further in your career. Not the amount of hours you practice, but the quality time of your practice with your intelligence. Because singing takes place here, first of all, then there, and not the other way around.
I agree. I love that perspective. And I do have to state, too, that, I mean, your upper range is not thin. It's a really full, beautiful sounding head voice, the upper range. And I think, again, when we talk about allowing the voice to lighten, dropping some of that weight and allowing it to narrow, I think there is often that fear, that concern that the voice will become very thin and very hooty and overly bright. But I think you and others like you who are well trained and who, you know, have that experience behind them can really make that upper range sound beautiful and full and very rounded. Well, you know, and that's the trick.
Yes, it's as I say, in the image of sharpening the pencil, when you're going up to the top, you're leading with the sharp point, but you're not losing the rest of the pencil. You're not losing that the body of the sound. If you take that away and you only think of the point of the pencil, then you're just going to feel the sharp part. But the pencil is not just the point; it's the whole pencil. And that's what, as a mezzo-soprano, you've got to believe in, and you've got to have somebody that's listening for that on the outside to encourage you to maintain and keep that open throat, so that you can keep those lower the lower warmer part, harmonics and buzz in your voice. And the thing is, your timbre will be what your timbre is. Don't manipulate your timbre. Don't ever manipulate your timbre up at the top to want to sound like a mezzo-soprano, because as we know, go and listen to Friederike van Stade, go and listen to Sophie van Otte, go and even listen to Teresa Berganza. They are not going to sound like, you know, whopping like this up at the top, but you will recognize their timbre, in any case, from even them singing up in the top part of their voice, as well as you will recognize it in the middle and to the bottom if the voice has been really balanced out properly. It's like, as I say, if you go to the gym and you're just busy working, you know, your top part of your body, and then you have these little skinny legs. You have to work all parts of your voice and work at them so that they all fit to make a beautiful shape. And that's what we will, and you have to work at it every day. Your voice is going to be different when you wake up. One day you're going to feel that it's easy to sing. The next day you're going to go, if it's not working that well, then you have to really think of your technique and really, you know, concentrate from here and with lots of discipline, keep your voice going. And you're going to have to, you know, from year to year, as your voice grows with you and matures with you and grows with the repertoire you sing, you technically are going to have to grow and develop with your voice as well. And that's for mezzo-sopranos absolutely applicable as to any other voice type as well.
Excellent. So I guess just in closing, is there anything specific that, in terms of training tips or advice that you maybe haven't shared already with the mezzo-soprano, especially, I feel like that upper range for the mezzo-soprano is really kind of what I find is the most challenging aspect for us. I mean, there's definitely the lower passaggio area that can be a challenge, especially for voices that do tend to be a little bit weightier, but that upper range for the mezzo, especially when we have it in our heads that somehow we're mezzos and therefore can't sing as high as sopranos. Any specific practical advice that you can offer for mezzos out there who are looking to develop that upper range and really getting a nice sound that they are proud of, that they feel confident is a professionally viable sound?
What's important is not to overweight your middle voice. We tend to sometimes sort of get very generous with the middle of our voices. We tend to broaden out sometimes, you know. Sometimes I've seen colleagues that, you know, they sing with very open mouths, very in the middle of their voices. They try to make the middle very big because they think they're a mezzo and they think they've got to produce like mega sound or mega volume in that part of their voices. That can absolutely be very detrimental then to getting through this passaggio. So try not to think that just because you're a mezzo, you have to beef up your middle voice. Don't do anything artificial. Your timbre is your timbre. If you're a bright mezzo or a dark, lush mezzo, embrace your timbre. You have to embrace your identity as a mezzo-soprano. You're going to be a chameleon, more so than any of the other voice types. And enjoy it, because that means you've got more possibilities of color and sometimes smiling because you confuse people, the listener, who thinks you're a soprano but doesn't realize the finer nuances that you're a mezzo. So be aware of artificially beefing up that middle voice. Sing it honestly. Go for integrity of your vowels. And integrity of your resonance. Your resonance is the thing that will give you your volume. Don't ever try to push your middle voice larger than what it is. Because if you do that, it's going to affect your passaggio here. If you come out of a honestly produced middle voice, you're going to be able to transition into that head voice much easier. It's like with a train. We've got different trains with different carriages. The higher we go, climbing up a mountain, it's going to be more advantageous for you if the log is in front, pulling, than if you have the log at the back trying to push the train up the hill. This is you bringing weight from your middle and your bottom, pushing up. So it's far, far more important for you to find that small ooh place. And trust that voice. And learn to pull that becomes the dominant part of your voice. And trust it. Trust that if that's the point of the pencil, the rest of the pencil will be there as far as the color and timbre of your voice is concerned. Now, the difference is then if you go, and you're just singing with a high larynx, then of course you're gonna go all white, and the sound is gonna become white and thin and reedy, and you're gonna lose confidence in your sound. If you keep the pencil part, keep the functionality, the biology, the functioning by playing biology, that what your body does correctly. If you breathe correctly and keep your resonating chambers the way they need to be without closing them up, and you think of that front part, that pencil part, it's like a suction cap on something. That's the force that's pulling your voice. That's where the energy lies. That's the thing that's going to help you up into your head voice. Don't ever think of taking this middle part and going, I have to, get all this big, dark sound. It's the biggest tractor for me as a mezzo-soprano.
All right. Thank you so much for your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
What I've learned just out of experience, it might be different for other people. As I said, there might be people out there going, oh, well, when I sing, it's not like that. As I said, singing is a very, very individual thing. Very, very individual. And you can only make suggestions. Also, when you teach, you'll find I have 4 mezzo-sopranos. They are all different. And with one, this works. With one, that works. With one, I have to think of something other. And you have to treat each voice individually. But there are certain truths in singing, certain pillars, I think, which and homegrown truths that we know through the centuries have been passed down to us with reason, because we know they function. And we know they also function because of the sound that's produced, and we also know because of the biology and also today we know the science part of it, the two correlate and prove each other correct.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure chatting to you. I hope whoever's listening can glean something and maybe there's a door that's gone open for somebody. And if that's the case, I would be very, very, very happy indeed.
I'm sure that my viewers also appreciate your taking your day off to have this little chat with me. It's been great.
It's my pleasure.
So it was good. It was really good seeing you again too. It's been too long, and we probably should keep in touch, but keep in better touch.
We should keep in touch again, absolutely, because not one person alone in the world can't know everything. As I say to my students, I'm going to tell you something when they're new and study with me. Please, I might have the title of professor, but I really don't know everything. I really, really don't. But I promise you, if I ever come across something I don't know, I'm going to try and find out. I think, and as a singer, you always have to remain inquisitive. We have to stay inquisitive. Stay inquisitive about your own voice. Never get stuck. The difference between a grave and a groove is only its depth. So don't get stuck. Just keep experimenting. Listen, play around, find out. Because a teacher or professor can only help you that far. In the end, you are in your own body. You have to feel it. I can explain things till the cows come home, as we say in Africa. Because when the sun goes down, that means they come in to go, in their barns. So, I can explain the whole day. I can explain till the cows come home. But if you are incapable of translating that information and finding out your own physicality, oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay. And then remember it so that you can reproduce it. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. Anybody that has learned to ride a bicycle knows that even if you've not ridden a bicycle for years and you get onto it again, you might feel a bit wobbly, but you can still ride it. And that's why it's so, so, so important. The knowledge. Listen to other singers. Listen not just to the sound, but try and listen functionally as well. Once you start understanding a little bit more about technique, don't just listen to the beauty of the sound. Listen functionally. Why does that note sound the way it does? What are they doing to make it sound like that? That's that's what tickles me when I stand on stage and I stand and I listen to my colleagues and I go, wow, that's really Then I go, okay, so what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? You know, still with your eyes and your ears. You know, always soak up, learn, learn, learn. You, as a singer, you are never going to stop learning in your life. If you're going to be lazy, you're going to get stuck. You're going to learn text, you're going to learn music, and you're going to learn technique, and you're going to learn everything for the rest of your life. You're going to be a student for life when you're a singer. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you might as well stop right now.
Excellent. So we will definitely have to do this again, and we'll come up with another good topic like professional singing.
You're more than welcome, more than welcome. And I mean, as I said, really kudos to you for putting up these videos and the fantastic information that's there. I mean, we're living in a wonderful age. At the, you know, press of a button, you've got world library under your fingers, and you can have such great access to so many different viewpoints, as I say, you know, and there's no, this is my experience of singing that I'm sharing with people today. Somebody else might have a totally different one and a totally different point of view. So this is my very personal way, and that's what's so great. You can go and listen to various things and then find out what suits you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you again. That soon.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
And the bumping violet grows.